Well, thank you, Martha. Appreciate you partnering with us on this and letting us kind of help promote your event. And, we've had a great relationship with Startup Junkie for many, many years and are just excited to be able to help out. Karen Wagaman with the Chamber of Commerce, she does all of our downtown Rogers development. She's also on this call. But here at the Chamber, we're just here to help businesses, whether you're large or small, from Walmart to that idea of a startup and everything in between. We just want to be a resource. We work well with our partners in the region, and we are just very excited to be able to work with great partners like Startup Junkie and also Bank OZK for helping sponsor today as well. And just excited to learn about the opportunities for this Her Entrepreneurship Series in 2020.
Thank you, Steve. And next, I'm going to introduce to you Christy Davenport, who's on with us. And then also Audwin Vaughn is on with us with Bank OZK. Christy is a Vice President and Business Development Officer with Bank OZK. And when I get to the sections about banking, she's going to talk a little bit about all the retail services that banks offer. And I really want you all to listen to this, because even when I was a bank loan officer, I was blown away sometimes at the retail services and the benefits that our bank staff offered my small business clients beyond just a bank account and a loan. So Christy, if you'd like to say hello to everyone.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. I am Christy Davenport. I have been with Bank OZK since it was Bank of the Ozarks, 14 years. Bank OZK is Arkansas based and Arkansas grown, although we are spread out into the southeast region of the United States and into New York and California. So whether your business expands just in Northwest Arkansas or throughout Arkansas, into Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, we're here to help you. Martha, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Audwin, would you like to say hello to everyone?
I would. Martha, I just wanted to tell you how much, for piggyback what Steve said, we're just so pleased to be able to participate with Startup Junkie. I just can't say enough about Startup Junkie and what you do, what you stand for, being a champion for business, as well as the Rogers Local Chamber. We're all in this. We like to win, and your company and your business wins, and the participants today, if they haven't heard you speak before, they're in for a real treat. Martha is phenomenal, and we're just looking forward to participating with her today as well.
All right, thank you, Audwin. We appreciate you being here. And so as you can see, I'm hoping that you're seeing the screen. Let me get my screen to go from the beginning. That the title and the idea of this is to get the business idea off the ground, but it is also, I often have people participate in these seminars when we do them live and online who already have a business they kind of started, and this is a great time to kind of go back and make sure you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's to continue forward in a growth mode. Having worked March 12th, we kind of felt like here was the explosion of the COVID business crisis. And since that time, I've spent sometimes up to 74 hours a week, as my log shows me, working with small business owners trying to navigate this crisis. And many times we had to backtrack and do some things that hadn't been done initially so that they could get applications in for loans and for grants. So a lot of what I'm going to say, if you know someone who already has a small business and you think, I wonder if she's done this or thought about that, always feel free to have them reach out to us. We love to do checkups with businesses. And sometimes that's not just planning for the future, but going back and being sure that everything in the past was done correctly and that they're ready for that growth. As you can see, this is also called a Her Entrepreneur Series. We're going to have another one of these at the end of the month in June. That's going to specifically talk about business funding options loans, credit cards, lines of credit, things like that, equipment leasing. And then we're going to do the same 2 series of seminars with Bank OZK in September, and then again later in the fall, probably in November. So we had originally planned to have a couple of these in April and had to postpone due to the crisis, of course. But this is a series because Startup Junkie and Bank OZK are committed to growing woman-owned businesses in Northwest Arkansas. So always be on the outlook for this and our events and our meetups for women business owners. Rogers Low Chamber of Commerce, I have served for over 8 years on its Small Business Council and actually chaired that council a year. And I really want to encourage anyone who is in Northwest Arkansas in business to join some chamber. Get active with the chambers. They were entrepreneurship before we used the word entrepreneurship, and they are your baseline team to grow your business. So the roadmap, we're going to talk about launching the business, but even if you have launched, look at these ideas and things to make sure you've covered all these bases. We generally start people out with a lean canvas, just getting some basics, trying not to overwhelm them in planning. But I will talk a little bit about an expanded and full business plan that will be needed if you're going to especially approach a financial lending institution for a loan. And I'll give you some ideas for some local resources to help you with that, because one of the main things we consider ourselves to be at Startup Junkie is community collaborators. I spend a lot of my day sending people to other places for help, and I am thrilled when I do that. I just did a webinar for the Fayetteville Public Library, and the entire webinar was about 11 local resources in Northwest Arkansas that I send people to every week. And that's what we want to do. We want you to get the help you need for the least amount of money as possible. We're going to talk about the startup steps, a little bit about financing, but not as much in depth. We will do that on the 30th because not everybody needs money to start a business, or maybe they already have money. So we will talk about financing a little bit, but we'll talk about that much more in depth on June 30th. And then once again, I'm going to give you some ideas about resources to help you. One of the main things starting out is you have to look at your market. You need to know what's going on in your community and how big it is. I often will add, one of the first questions I'll ask people when they tell me they're going to launch a business or they're calling to get advice on their business, the first thing I say is, where are you located? That's absolutely vital to knowing how big your town is. Is it containing customers like the customers you're going to need? Is there a demand for your service or product? Sometimes people will say to me, oh, I've got this great idea. There's never been a blank in Rogers, or there's never been this kind of business in Fayetteville. There may be a reason there's never been that kind of business, because there may not be enough customer demand for it. Or I will sometimes say, oh, how long have you lived here? Actually, about 16 years ago, there was a restaurant just like that in South Fayetteville. And then we need to talk about why that restaurant failed, or maybe it shut down because the owners got remarried and moved away. But we need to understand the demand for the service and product. You can have the world's greatest widget or make the very best barbecue in the world, but if there's not a demand for it, it's never going to get out into the marketplace and make you money and be successful. Lastly, please, before you call a banker for a loan, know your competition. I would often really pause when people called me to talk about a loan, when I would say, oh, yes, that sounds great. Well, you know, there's 2 of those, and one in East Fayetteville and one in West Fayetteville. And the person would say, oh, I didn't know that. And that makes me wonder how committed that person is to what they want to do and how interested they are in their industry. You need to know every competitor who does what you do in your locale or in your region. And even if you're launching an online store, you need to be Googling and finding the retailers or the service provider who does what you do. One, because that makes you a sophisticated, intelligent business owner who's committed to their industry, but also because you might get some ideas about seeing things in their social media and on their website that you should do. You as the founder owner is very important to this. That's one of the first things anyone, especially that you're asking a loan from, is going to want to know. What's your background? That's usually the second question I ask people. So what's your background in accounting? What's your background in working or running a daycare? Who's going to be in charge of the daily operations? Are you starting out just you? Do you anticipate needing some help, some team members, some employees? Who's going to keep the books? This is absolutely vital. And I often refer people to local bookkeepers in the area who will teach someone how to use QuickBooks Online or some other sort of accounting software. QuickBooks Online is wonderful, but just because you know how to enter numbers and punch buttons, there's a saying in the industry of junk in, junk out. If you don't set the categories up correctly, if you don't know how to use the financial software, then the profit loss statements and the cash flow reports you print out are going to be incorrect. Who in your business is going to deal with the public, deal with clients? So if it's a brick and mortar store, what kind of people are going to be the first persons that your customers come into contact with? If it's an online store, who are your tech people? How are the messages going to get out there during the processing of orders or the examination of products while buyers are making decisions? Oops, sorry about that. My screen froze for a second. Financing. This is one of the next questions I will get to with people, is starting to ask them, do you need money? Have you already started the business? How much have you spent already? And especially if people tell me that they're going to need money to start a business, then that is the time that the footwork begins. That's the time that the main research begins. I help people all the time start the initial inquiry as to what kind of startup costs. You know, sometimes I'll name something off like, have you checked about how much your business insurance will be? Oh no, I hadn't thought of that. Do you know some local small business insurance companies? I'm not going to call them for you. There's not a place you can go to just get a general quote. You're going to have to start reaching out and interviewing and talking to website developers, insurance companies, accountants, bookkeepers. You're going to have to price which of the 12 QuickBooks Online software programs you're going to purchase and how much that is. So you're going to need to identify all those financing needs, because if you're seeking a loan in the future, you're going to have to invest at least 10%, possibly 15 to 20% of that total startup company cost into the business itself. So say you put all your startup costs together and you're going to need $200,000 to open a store. Any lender, a bank, an online lender, anyone is going to look to see what your, we kind of call it the down payment, but it's actually an equity investment. What are you going to put into the business first? And so you have to put those together to know how much you're going to need personally to start your business. We're going to need to start figuring out a way to forecast projected sales. This is another reason you need to know the competition in the area to see what size of businesses are already there, so you know what size you're going to be opening. Are you going to be a very small business? Are you going to be a medium size? We're going to have to start projecting sales. And these are not figures that we just pull out of the sky. This comes from research. And you don't just create a projection by saying, oh, I think I'll sell $10,000 worth of food a month from my restaurant. Well, which month? Because in Fayetteville, Arkansas in January, that's one of the driest restaurant months versus March. And if you have a patio in March, you're going to have a massive difference in the gross revenues in March versus those in January. How is the income broken down? Are you doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are you selling alcohol? Are you selling merchandise, t-shirts, take-home salsa? You have to begin to put all of those different aspects together. This is the lean canvas map I talked to you about that we give to all of our new startup clients. Sometimes I give the lean canvas to people that started a business and it just took off and they got busy and now they're trying to decide, should I open a second location? Should I add another product line? I will give them this lean canvas even if they've been in business for 2 years and never sat down and thought, why are we here? What problem are we solving for our clients? How are we unique? What is the unfair advantage? What's the special thing about us? You want to know what your place is in the market and why you're special so that you can grow and make sure that your growth meets the original mission that you had. And this is something we're happy to provide people with. You can actually Google lean canvas map. There are all different ones out there. This is the one that we kind of like at Startup Junkie. And one of the most important things on this that you have to look at is cost structure. Making sure you really know how much money you're making on every plate of food, every dress that you sell, every service call that you provide, or every bush that you plant as a landscaper. And then the different revenue streams. This is something else that we help clients with. And I know really good local small business bankers who do this with their clients. They'll look at a client's business and say, hey, have you ever thought of catering? And people might say, out of a food truck? I don't know if I have room to cater out of a food truck. There are many ways to find resources to help you have a larger kitchen, like at the Arkansas Food Innovation Lab, where you can prepare products. You might start looking at purchasing a delivery vehicle to grow those revenue streams. So the Lean Canvas Map is deceptively short and sweet, but it covers a lot that you're going to need in the future to develop possibly a full business plan for a bank loan. This is something I cannot stress enough. I used to, sometimes people would say, well, I really think I'll just incorporate on my own. I really don't think I need an attorney. And I would have people who've run a business for a couple years that say, well, I incorporated and no, I don't have an operating agreement. I don't need a small business lawyer. I haven't been sued. Especially after the past few months with the COVID crisis, I am really, really stressing to my small business clients. If you are starting a business or you've had one and have never consulted with a small business attorney, you really need to do that. And yes, you need an operating agreement, because the articles of incorporation or the articles of organization that you file with the Secretary of State, they don't tell the world who owns the business, what percentage of membership you have, who has the authority to open a bank account, who has the authority to take out a loan. That operating agreement is vital, and the banks aren't going to open a small business checking account for you until they know who the human is that's in charge of that. So hiring a true small business attorney, an accountant to help you in Northwest Arkansas is so easy. We have a list here at Startup Junkie of accountants and attorneys who have come to us, who have come to our events, that have worked with our clients. It's not some huge expense. We have attorneys in the area who, for very small, like $600, $700, $800, will give you a full LLC package, will explain to you how to be a legal business owner, draft an operating agreement for you, help you get your federal tax ID. And the second thing that I tell a lot of clients is you're going to need someone to help you draft contracts with your vendors, or review contracts from your vendors. Draft contracts for your wedding planning services that you do with a bride and groom. That needs to be a contract, and it needs to very clearly spell out the charges and the services provided and the expectations. So getting a local small business attorney, you know, I've had people say, I don't have $10,000 to spend on an attorney. And I'm like, well, I don't either, but I have a small business attorney. It doesn't cost that much. We have many, many great small business attorneys, and then you can get lots of added advice and assistance from them. So these are the different ways that people start small businesses. Let's look on the right side first. This is the doing business as. So say I make a dress for my niece one day, and she wears it to a pageant. And she goes to the pageant, and tons of people say, oh my gosh, I love that dress. Who made it? And she says, my Aunt Martha made it. And then I start making dresses for some of her friends, and I start calling it Martha's Pageant Dreams. That's just the doing business as. That's just the name I call it. Well, whatever county I live in, Arkansas truly has a right to know that I'm making dresses in my house and I'm taking money for them and selling them. And so I advise my clients to take their business seriously. And you can go to the county courthouse in whatever county you live, and for $25, fill out a form and have it stamped that says, Martha Londigan, doing business as Martha's Pageant Dreams. It has your home address, and it adds an air of legitimacy to your business, and it's prepping you to be a true business owner. You can then take that doing business as certificate and your ID and go to the bank and open a business checking account. Now, that checking account is still going to just have your social security number. It's going to have your name and DBA on it. But this is a great early step to start separating business income and business expenses from the personal. Partnerships do still exist, but since the LLCs were launched in the 1980s, I don't know any attorney or anyone who creates partnerships anymore. LLCs are so easy to create and add that layer of limiting liability so well that typically people will say, this is my partner, but they really mean it's my co-member in my LLC. So on the right-hand side, anything that happens, if I get in a dispute with someone, I make a dress, they don't pay me, it's them versus me. If I'm pinning someone in a dress and altering it and I accidentally poke them and hurt them, that's all on me personally. I am liable for everything I say, everything I do. There's no separation between me and the business. On the left-hand side is when you begin to separate the person from the business owner. And so the Secretary of State's office in Little Rock. So think about if you've ever served on a board. There's a president, a vice president, there's a secretary who keeps the notes and the records of the meeting. So the president of Arkansas is our governor. The Secretary of State keeps the books, the records of what's going on in our state. So a piece of paper is filed called the Article of Incorporation if it's an S corporation, or an Article of Organization, and the Secretary of State puts that in the books, and that tells all 75 counties in Arkansas this business exists in our state. So you don't have to go to 75 counties and file a doing business as certificate. When you take the step of becoming a legal entity, you file at the Secretary of State's office. You pay a filing fee, and then every year you pay what is called a franchise fee. It's kind of goofy. People get confused. They're like, I don't have a franchise. It just means you have the ability to be an existing business and franchise out and grow your business in Arkansas. It's really just an annual fee, and you have to pay that every year. And yes, it is very important, because if you don't pay that fee every year, your business gets suspended and you're not in good standing. It'll say revoked. And folks, the only place a business exists is in the Secretary of State's office. So it's very important to pay that, because if you don't, you have completely undone everything you took the time with an attorney to do. You have the chance of losing the of limiting your liability, because your business disappeared. Your insurance might not cover the acts of the business if you have let it get revoked. So you file this, you create it, then the attorney creates an operating agreement that tells who owns Martha's Pageant Dreams LLC. What percentage? Is it 50% her and 50% her husband? Is it 50% her, 25% two of her sisters? It tells who can open the business checking account, how much they can spend out of the account, and what kinds of authorities. What will happen to Martha's Pageant Dreams LLC if she passes away or wants to sell it, and one of the other sisters. And so that's a private document that's drafted up and signed and dated and kept by the books or the manager of the business. So those are very important documents to do. So on the left, you would then also apply to the IRS and tell the IRS that you have created this business entity, and you as the member manager need a tax ID number for that business so that it can make its own contracts and it can eventually file its own tax returns. And so that number is issued by the IRS. An accountant, a bookkeeper, an attorney can apply for that for you, or you can do that yourself. Obviously, you don't want to do this until you have the name for this. So you want to also investigate that. That's another thing an attorney can help you with. I get in sort of a little bit crossways with people sometimes. They'll come in and they'll say they've already picked their name, and I'll Google it, and there's two businesses with that name already, one in Tulsa and one in Little Rock. And I'm like, that's not a good idea. And they'll say, but I really like that name. And I'm like, yeah, but I think you'd like to own a viable business better. And if you start a business using someone else's name with Google, people will find you. They'll set up Google alerts for their business name. So you need to investigate that name, be sure it's one that you can use, that no one else has. Figure that out before you file the LLC, and obviously before you apply for the tax ID number. This is the kind of overview of everything that would be in a formal business plan. We have templates of these that we give out to people to start filling out. I'm going to talk to you in a little bit about another local resource that's actually just about 3 blocks from us, the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Center. There are 7 of them in the state, and like Startup Junkie, they provide a certain amount of free resources. And one of the things they provide is actual staff members who will help you review a business plan, help you write these paragraphs and review them with you. And one of the important things they do is in this section I'm highlighting here, this market analysis, they have a grant and they have access to market research reports. So if you are going to open a bicycle repair shop in South Fayetteville, they can get you some actual market data in it takes them usually about a week or 2 to bring that in, that tells you how many people in Fayetteville, Arkansas own a bicycle, how old they are, what's the average price they spent on a bicycle, what's the average price for repairs. They can make you a map of all the competitors in the area, all the different bike shops, so that you don't have to Google that yourself. You should, just to get a general idea, but they can get you an actual map of that. And then all of this goes in your business plan to help you decide if there is a need in the market for another bicycle repair shop. Do you need to sell bicycles? Do you need to lease them? They can get you some of that market information. You need to have a marketing plan. And I've always told people in conversations, all right, I'm going to tell you that you need a website. Now, do you want me to tell it to you once or 16 times? You decide. And people will laugh and say, okay, I get it. You can tell me once. And then they leave and they set up a Facebook page and never get around to a website. So that is dangerous for 2 reasons. I don't think it's a good idea for Mark Zuckerberg to own your only available use of marketing. You don't own Facebook. You have the limited right to have a Facebook page. And you need to own your own place on the web, and that's with a website. I have had many people contact me in the last few months in a panic, needing someone to help them set up a website because they never did. And now they don't have a place to store their menus. They don't have a place 24/7 that people can just instantly go to and see if they're open, see what services they're offering, order their products. So this has really, really obviously become even more vital than it was after what we've all experienced with the COVID crisis. You're going to have all of these different types of financial statements that you need to start being able to produce with your business after a few months. Every month, you need to run a profit loss statement. Look at how much money you brought in and how much money you spent. Determine your break even for your business so you know your sales goals each month. So these are all the basic things that you want to put together in a business plan. And in Northwest Arkansas, we have a lot of people, a lot of entities that will help you with this. You don't have to do this by yourself. It's not hard, it's new. It's quite a bit of work the first few months. It's not hard and it's not impossible. It's just a lot of work. But if you love what you do in the industry, if you want to be a business owner, I promise you, you will enjoy this whole process. Financing. So many businesses I know started with a loan from a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, from people's own private savings. That is very common to do that. Equipment leasing companies are a great resource for this for people because they can offer certain types of loans that have better rates, that are easier to get because the equipment is a great piece of collateral. It's a great thing that the bank might have a lien on. Banks have different financing programs. The one we do at the end of this month on June 30th, we're going to explain to you more in detail the difference between an SBA guaranteed loan and an in-house bank loan. A lot more people know what the SBA is these days because during the COVID crisis, the U.S. Small Business Administration was a forefront leader in providing disaster loans and starting the PPP, Payroll Protection Program loans, that many banks in the area got involved in. There are alternative financing options such as credit cards, and then there are the ideas of venture and investor capitalists. Those, of course, are more for experienced businesses that have proven themselves. And so there are all many different sources of financing out there available for people. General comments about financing: get a loan commitment. For sure, you know you've got it before you sign any agreements. Don't sign an agreement with a vendor to buy product for them for the first year before you know you're going to have money to pay for that. Don't sign a lease unless you know that you're going to be able to make those lease payments because your loan has already been approved. Don't expect to get a grant. We've heard a lot about grants for small businesses recently, but that's because of the crisis. They're usually very focused on woman-owned small businesses that have been in business for 2 years, or to encourage minority business development. They're in the normal non-COVID world, those are rare. The way the government helps for-profit businesses is by providing this wonderful SBA program that makes banks more likely to make loans. Grants are typically for nonprofits that provide a community service. The IRS has said that service is community oriented. It's not political. It's not restricted. It's to help make the community better. And then the IRS allows foundations and wealthy individuals to give to the nonprofit and get a tax break potentially based upon their tax situation. Don't assume you're going to get a bank loan just because you're a good person, all right? Bankers like good people. We all like good people, but banks are very heavily regulated by the federal government. And especially if they do SBA lending, they have audits. They have a 420-page operating procedure they have to go by. There are many loans that if your credit score is below 680, especially 650, they're not even allowed to offer you a loan. So there's a big mix of items and criteria that go into it. So don't ever assume you're going to get a loan. And don't expect 100% financing. You're going to have to invest in your business. Banks are your partners in your growth. They are not your family that just says, yay, go do this. Here's all the money you need. The banks have to mitigate their risk so that they can survive and make good decisions so that they can always be there for us to grow our economy. So, U.S. Small Business Administration loans, I talked to you a little bit about that, being the government entity. It is a special program for small businesses. If banks sign up with it, they're guaranteed to possibly get some of the money back if the loan fails. It has a maximum loan rate of prime, which you can look up the prime lending rate. That's the rate the government loans money to banks with. And then they add a 2.75 interest rate. They can go up to that, but it's up to the local bank as to what kind of interest rate they want to offer. These loans are very good for small business owners because they can allow for longer terms, which lowers the monthly payment, and they can have longer terms on the lines of credit. These loans have a fee that go with them. The bank can loan you the fee, and the fee goes to the U.S. Small Business Administration because it's going to monitor your loan, and it's going to provide services like the Small Business Center at the U of A. It does look at credit history. If the loan is very large, there may be some need to pledge personal collateral. You have to be invested in the business in order to encourage a bank to invest in you. Startup loans are typically, like I told you early on, about 10% of the total need. You're going to need to have that in cash to put in the business checking account to first spend before a bank, if they approve a loan, will invest that in you. It has certain requirements, the SBA loans. You have to be a U.S. citizen or have a green card. Felony convictions are usually kind of a deal breaker for SBA loans because the SBA is funded by taxpayer dollars, and the taxpayers want to support U.S. citizens who are upstanding citizens who are going to grow and do great things, but there are some restrictions in there. If you've ever failed on a government loan in the past, like a VA home loan or an FHA home loan, you're not going to be able to go back to the government and get a guaranteed loan again. Banks have their own standards also for loans that are not SBA backed. And so sometimes you can get a really good, even a better interest rate if you have a relationship with a local bank. And that's what's most important. I have for years told people, I really discourage you from using online lenders, going to, the Wells Fargos and the Bank of America online. Get to know a local community banker. They will work with you. They will get to know your business. You can grow together. And with the recent round of PPP loans, my clients who got PPP loans used a local community banker that they had a relationship with. And they got in way in front of and got their funding and what they needed above people who went online. The banks can make more flexible decisions because they don't have that like 400-page SBA rule book that they're having to dot the I's and cross the T's. And the most important thing with these in-house bank loans is they are true community bankers because they know the community, they know the business community, and they will help you with the whole process. So there's two forms of the loans, the in-house loans and the SBA backed loans. And it all depends upon what is best for you and your ability to obtain the loan and operate the business. And so now I want to turn it over to Christy for a little bit to talk to us about Bank OZK and if they offer those SBA loans, which I know they do, and what other types of small to larger loans just in general are offered for our small business community. So Christy, if you could address that for us.
I would think Odwin was going to cover the loan side, and then I was going to cover the checking account side. But
Great,
Odwin?
yes, Odwin, yeah, great.
Yes.
So Odwin, you want to talk about that and
Absolutely.
just let people know. So we're going to talk about the loans, and then Christy's going to talk about the retail. And I know when we think of retail, we think of goods, but she's going to talk about everything else a bank does besides make a loan.
Very good. And what I would also pitch that you come back for the sequel to this, as Martha mentioned, we'll have our government guaranteed lending, our SBA specialist, Lance Sexton, who will give a little more in-depth overview of some of the loan products that are available for small business. For me, from my perspective today, having worked with small businesses for over 30 years, nothing pleases me more than to be able to see a company that starts with an idea, to have a great product, whatever the service may be, and to see it grow and flourish. I've been able to work with some of these companies, and they all have, like Martha said, different ways of starting. But a lot of times we'll see things just simply like an equity line product on a house. That's where you take a second mortgage on a residence. Maybe you've got some equity built up there. We've got it's really a 25-year product. It's interest only for the first 10 years. You can draw on that at any time during the first 10 years. Use it for purposes that you need to help support your company grow, things like that. And then over the remaining 15 years, after the first 10 years up, it will be set up on monthly payments to amortize to pay back. So that's one way that we typically see. But there are also other ways that we look at as far as just trying to finance what we call acquisition indebtedness. That's if you're buying a piece of equipment. We'll try to look at ways to finance that. Martha mentioned that we will want to see some equity into it. In other words, skin in the game. We want to see some cash into it. If you have other sources of income, some people start this on the side. Maybe they've got other income that's coming in, or we can underwrite the credit based on some of the existing income that you have that's coming in. Maybe you're just very reliant in a small way on this new business. Then a lot of times that can open up some other opportunities to use personal assets, things like that. So we would look at it from a lot of different angles. I can't ever say this is the way that you will go from start to finish. If we see that we need some additional help and we just can't get there in bank for sure, then we're going to seek out and encourage someone. If they haven't already talked to Startup Junkie, we're going to encourage them to talk to them or to Mary Beth at the Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Center. Places like that can get the resources to help put a business plan together. So then we've got a package for the SBA. That's sort of in a nutshell. I'll turn it back over to you, Martha.
Thank you, Audwin. And I know we got some information in the chat that some people were having a little difficulty hearing Audwin. So just FYI, at the end of this, Caleb is going to email everyone a PDF copy of the Lean Canvas and this presentation. And we're going to send you Audwin's contact info and let you know that you can reach out to him for some more information about Bank OZK. What is so important about this is I want you to realize Audwin and Christy are here. And they are happy to talk to you and work with you on all these different types of options. So, you know, Audwin talked about a home equity line of credit. So if you own your home in Northwest Arkansas, you've owned it for 10 years, that might be a great option. As soon as you tell him that you rent your home, then that's a totally different conversation. They have many different products. So don't ever let someone who's not a business owner, who's not a banker tell you, oh, you can't get a loan. Go talk to these bankers. There are many, many different products, and we'll get more into loan products later on at the end of the month. All right, so back to some of the other issues. We'll get away from finance for a little bit and talk about some of the things that you need to do before you can open a bank account or open a business. So obviously, permits, licenses, and taxes. So you need to be sure that you can legally do what it is you want to do. If you want to open a nail salon, if you want to open a hair salon, you have to have permission from the state boards that regulate those areas and industries. You need to contact the city about getting a license. A big one that I really talk to people about, every city in Northwest Arkansas has different rules and regulations about licenses and permits, especially things like home offices. No, you don't just get to open a business in your house and ignore zoning laws. That's not the way that works. It's very dependent on not only the city rules and regulations, but if you have a home, there are covenants. There are now covenants in Northwest Arkansas on housing additions. They don't just say you can't operate a business out of your house. They say you can't have a home office service-based business. You can't operate an online business. Here's why. You say, well, I'm in my house. What difference does it make? If you start an online business selling goods out of your garage, you could potentially have 25 FedEx trucks up and down the street every day. That is a residential neighborhood. Those people don't expect 25 FedEx trucks every day. If they wanted to live next to that, they would have built their house in a shopping center. So you need to understand, yes, this is a free country, which means you are free to not buy a house in that housing addition. You are free to go lease proper commercial space to protect the rights of other people. People don't want their neighborhood to become a business district. So you really have to investigate this to be sure that what you're planning to do is what you can do. And you might need to pivot and wait a little while to save up money to actually lease some space and have an office maybe in a commercial zone if you need clients to come in and out. You may need, like I told you before, you can start a small business, a very small business, as the DBA, just an individual sole proprietor, and you don't have to have a tax ID number. You will simply be adding to your personal return what's called a Schedule C, and that Schedule C will say, I got income from a business operation. It doesn't say it doesn't have to be from an LLC, but I operated a business. I bought material and thread and lace and made dresses. Here's my expenses. And I got paid this much for those dresses. It can be that simple. But as the business progresses, and absolutely 100% if you're going to have employees and have payroll and have responsibilities as an employer, you're going to need to have an LLC to limit that liability. That's the whole point of a liability limitation, is that if something happens to someone, if you fail on a contract and get sued, that you have been able to separate your personal assets. You're limiting the liability of you personally on that contract due to that accident to just the business assets and the business insurance. So you need to be always making sure that you're legally operating and protecting yourself and your employees and your business. In Arkansas, we call it the Department of Finance and Administration, the DFA. That's our taxing authority. In Oklahoma, it's called the OTC, the Oklahoma Tax Commission. In Arkansas, it doesn't even have the word tax in it, but that's our taxing authority. Sales and use tax is very, very, very important. If you sell a product and you collect a sales tax, that is not your money. You become a tax collector for the state of Arkansas when you sell goods and collect sales tax. You have to remit that tax to the state of Arkansas every month. And if you don't, not only will they publish your name on a state public website, but they will end up coming and putting orange tape on your front door and changing the locks and shutting your business down. So making sure you know if you have to charge sales tax or don't is very, very important. And sometimes people will say, well, of course you have to charge. Everybody has to charge sales tax. The sales and use tax code is many, many, many pages long. There are exceptions. For example, if you go buy flowers at a flower shop and it's a $20 bouquet, you're not going to pay $20. You're probably going to pay $22.37. You're going to pay tax. If you go this Saturday to Evelyn Hills and buy a $20 bouquet at the farmer's market, you're just going to pay $20. Why is that? Because the Arkansas legislature back in the 70s passed a law, and there's an exception to the sales tax rule that if the goods are grown and created by the individual and sold at a certified farmer's market in the state of Arkansas, there's no sales tax. So you need to talk to an accountant and a bookkeeper and see if your services are those that require sales tax or your goods. Permits, obviously very important. Any product that goes in a human or touches a human is very subject to regulation, and you have to always, always follow these permit regulations from the Arkansas Department of Health. Once again, more about taxes. So there is more than just sales and use tax. There are self-employment taxes. And so sometimes people will say, well, I heard that I should start my business as an S Corp because there's better tax advantages than an LLC. So if you set up an LLC and you operate the business, and at the end of the third month, you realize there's plenty of money in there to can keep running the business for a few months, and you're ready to take some income out, and you make a distribution to yourself, you write a check from the business bank account to yourself personally as the owner, and you put it in your personal business account. At the end of the year, you're going to be filing a tax return to tell the government if you made profit on the business. And that's when there can be the institution of a self-employment tax. And the reason is, we all know if you have a job and you're an employee, there are going to be taxes taken out of your check paid to the government to continue to operate our wonderful country. So if you're not setting yourself up as an employee, the government is going to impose what's called a self-employment tax. Now, after the business runs for a couple of years and you realize you have steady income and you could pay yourself as an employee and make yourself an employee, your accountant can apply to the IRS to change your tax status to an S Corp. You don't have to go create an S Corp. You can be an LLC, but have the tax status of an S Corp. And so these are conversations you can have with your accountant, and then you won't pay the self-employment tax because you'll already be paying federal and state payroll taxes like a regular employee. Withholding taxes on employees, those are very serious taxes that must be taken out and remitted to the government once you take them out of an employee's check. And then we have the corporate state franchise tax. every state has different types of taxes. So this is very specific. Every state has different LLC laws. So when you go on something like LegalZoom, you know, you can't do an LLC like one you saw of your cousins in Michigan. That's totally different laws, and that's why it's very important to get some advice to make sure you're compliant with your state's tax and legal guides. Record keeping, keep all your business sales, whether you do a very small DBA or you go on to create an LLC, they need to be separate from your personal. You want to keep a schedule of every business asset you buy. Keep a copy of the invoice and proof of payment, because if you switch banks, you won't have those canceled checks anymore. This is absolutely vital. When I was a banker, I had someone come in to start a business. They had a piece of equipment they had bought 15 years ago, and it was a very expensive piece of equipment that had like a 30-year lifespan. And they had paid $20,000 from that piece of equipment. They left that industry and went and moved due to a marriage and got a different job. And now they were going to revitalize that business. That piece of equipment was still valued at about $15,000 on the open market. That can count as an equity infusion in the business once it's determined what it's valued, but we needed to prove that they owned it and how much they had spent for it. And so they did a lot of digging, and it took forever to find that. So even if you're starting very small, keep records of if you buy a computer, if you buy a piece of machinery, keep track of what you paid for that and how much, and then it was your personal funds, and that can be in the future counting towards your equity investment in the business. Regardless, for accounting purposes, you always want to keep a list of all of your assets in the computer, because you're going to have to produce balance sheets which show the total assets and values of the business that the business owns, and then the liabilities. And an accountant, a CPA can file your taxes, and a bookkeeper can help you set up this accounting system. And absolutely, if you ever get a bank loan, they're going to want quarterly profit loss statements and a balance sheet that shows all the assets the business owns and all the liabilities. And part of that is to see if you're getting debts somewhere else, if you've purchased a new piece of equipment that the bank has a right to have as collateral, etc. We want to have all of those records kept. www.irs.gov. Don't ever look for tax information from the IRS that doesn't end in .gov. Don't look at anything that says .com. That's a business trying to sell you information about the IRS. These sites are great to go look at the small business tax section to educate yourself. So when you go to the CPA, you understand a self-employment tax, you understand a Schedule C and a personal return, versus the business filing its own return in March instead of April. Go read all these guides and this information, and then you can have a shorter and more intelligent conversation with your accountant or with your bookkeeper to start understanding how to keep the books. Listen, my husband started his small business. We had worked for major companies. We had a major company ourselves, but we had bookkeepers and accountants and assistants. And when we started ours, I have an English degree and I have a law degree, but I don't have an accounting degree. And my accountant sat down with me for about 2 hours a month, each month, taught me how to use the software, taught me how to pay the taxes online. Anybody can learn to do this. Once again, it's not hard. It just takes some learning and some practice, and then it becomes a regular routine. All right, so I've talked to you a couple of times about bank accounts being separate. And once again, not to scare you, but this is the whole point of forming a limited liability company or an S corporation, is so that if something happens, if you violate a contract, if someone gets hurt in your store or on a product you sell, that your personal family assets, that your partner's assets are not subject to this, and keeping a separate bank account is a way to do this. POS is the point of sale system, making sure all of this integrates. If someone buys something and uses their debit card or their credit card from you, and it's on the website and you have the bank account, and yet you need to run reports, making all of this integrate and work together is vital. And before you buy a POS system, you need to choose a bank and talk to someone like Christy, who's getting ready to tell you about all the products and services they offer, because you need to make sure all of these systems talk to each other. So Christy, if you could just give everybody a little overview. I know they're going to be as surprised as I was when I became a small business banker about all of the different things that the retail team can do. And I'm going to unshare my screen. Christy has a little presentation. She's going to show you all about all the things that your bank can do for you to help you run your business.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can. We see
Okay.
Bank OK in white and red.
Okay. So our Bank OZK has a wide variety of products and services to service the small business, whether it's just starting or whether it's been in business for years. We have the small business banking and accounting services, and you will need to visit a local banker or a local branch to decide and to talk to someone to get that started. Let's see. Uh-oh, I went too far. Let's see. How do I go back here?
You might be able to click on it and punch the P on your keyboard, Christy, for print.
Okay.
That might help.
There we go. As she was talking about earlier, Martha was giving you some guidance on what you were going to need to start your business. You're also going to need that information to start your checking account here or at any bank. If you don't choose Bank OZK, you are going to need your personal information. You're going to need the address, when the business was established, and all of that is developed when you get your operating agreement, get your articles of incorporation, and we can also look at the Secretary of State good standing as well. We need to know the percentage of ownership for who owns the business. Do you own 20%? Do you own 50%? Or do you own 100%? Who is going to be the beneficial owner of that business? If it's more than one, we need to know who all of those are. We're going to need email addresses, legal name and business types of the business, your tax ID number. If you're doing a DBA account, if you're doing business as, you can use your social security number, but you can also use a TIN number if you've built that. Of course, that's going to be, you're going to need to get with your, what is it? Who is helping you organize your business. We will need those documentations. The required documents for, let's say, a fictitious name certificate is for, we'll need that for any of these general partnerships, limited partnerships, limited liability. We'll need the copy of your business license. If you have a partnership, we'll need that partnership agreement. Operating agreements and bylaws. Limited liability companies will need to provide that. Does anybody have any questions about this screen yet before I go forward? Here are the account types that we have at Bank OZK. Small business checking. I generally put people in this one because it does not carry a service fee. It's $100 to open. You get 250 combined items at no cost per calendar month. There's no minimum balance requirements. You do get free online bill pay, and this is a non-interest bearing account. If you tend to get bigger, as you tend to get bigger in your company, we can switch this at any time. We can go into a growth business checking account. It has 500 combined limit. If you're not familiar with the combined items, those include your deposits, your deposit items, your checks, and electronic items. So if you have more than 250 of those items coming in, you're going to need to be in a business growth to avoid that service fee. And then you just kind of go on to the bigger and as you grow your business. Benefits that the bank offers: remote deposit capture. If your business is going to be mainly checks or ACH incoming, remote deposit capture is going to be a product or a service that you can do from your home. You can make deposits from your office, or if you basing out of your home, like, you know, but office, you can make your deposits from your place of business. That takes less time out of travel to the bank every day. It can optimize your staff's time. They can do that there instead of taking the 15-minute drive or 30-minute drive to a bank. We also have online banking and bill pay and e-statements. But small business or any larger business, we offer instant issue debit cards. We build those here for you. It has your business name and your name. So if you're out, that can help you keep up with your expenses. Mobile banking also is a good product that you can have. You can check your balances and stuff as you go. One thing I wanted to touch on was merchant processing. We have a partnership with First Data Corporation. First Data has a wonderful product that can not only help you accept debit cards or credit cards for payment, but they can also help you keep up with your inventory. They can also help you with your payroll. There are so many things that First Data product can offer a small business or any company to help optimize their programs to help their businesses grow. Let's see. Another product that the bank offers is an ACH. We have an ACH department that if you are going to collect money or pay your receivables or pay all of that, your payroll, you can do that through our ACH services. We also have a Positive Pay. That program is designed to help deter fraud, or if someone steals your check and makes a copy of it, and it helps prevent that. It is a program that the bank connects with they offer the program to you. You send in a file to us every day of the checks that you've issued and the amounts and who they are to. And as checks come through your account, we mark that. This is our contact information. Odwin is in our Bentonville office on Walton Boulevard, there at Walton and Jay. And I am in the Rogers office. Actually, I'm in all three offices there, so you can, I visit each branch, so you can contact me at any of those branches. That number, my office number, goes directly to my cell phone, so you can get me at any time. This is our website. Please feel free to go out and search our website even more. www.ozk.com, and learn more about our other products and services that I didn't really get to touch on today. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to talk about Bank OZK.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy. And for some of you who aren't real familiar with banking other than having your regular account, a lot of times in there when she talks about ACH, That is just automated clearinghouse. So that's basically all the payments and debits and billing that goes online. And what's so great about this is, yeah, you can just go contract with some company in New York or California to take your payments and things, and that's all fine and dandy until there's a problem, until it doesn't work on a Saturday and you're out at the farmer's market, or until it doesn't work on a Saturday and you're slammed with clients. And so these are major companies that these banks contract with to provide these services, but they have access to them. They're your advocate. They deal with these major corporations that are doing all these huge national, billings and taking payments and all of that. And so that's the beauty of checking with the bank first before you sign up for a point of sale system, to make sure it integrates with your bank account. And then, like she said, you can add on payroll, you can add on inventory management. I had a client one time, we were getting them ready for a business loan, and I had just been busy and we hadn't talked about the accounts yet. And they had gone out and signed up with a POS system to operate a restaurant in Bentonville, Arkansas, and they couldn't take American Express. Are you kidding me? I almost had a heart attack. I'm like, why did you not, and so I learned to start talking about that checking account and that point of sale system early on with my business clients. And they were devastated. They didn't realize the impact of not being able to take American Express in Bentonville. Was not a good situation. All right, so have you unshared your screen yet, Christy? I'm going to share mine again. Good. All right. Wrong one. All right, so Christy's covered the banking section for us, and regardless, you want a bank that has real people and are experienced in small business to help you understand all of these systems and taking payments. And nowadays you can take payments anywhere, outside, inside, all over the world, and make deposits from the back room of your business in your flip-flops and your pajamas. So find out about all of these great products out there. Insurance. Insurance is very important. A lot of times what people think of is, I have a brick and mortar business, people come in, they slip and fall. There are a lot more issues that need to be covered with insurance than this. Example I like to give people that I heard in a presentation by a business consultant once was a woman who had an online marketing company. She worked out of her home. Online, did online ads, online marketing, social media for a major corporation. There was a national corporation she had a really good contract with, and they had her promote out starting at midnight one day a coupon. And she had a misprint, a typo in the coupon. And by the time the company caught it about 15 hours later, it had cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars that they had not planned on. So she got sued, right? She got sued. And if she didn't have an individual, separate, limited liability company that had business insurance, which covered her for mistakes, for malpractice, for doing something wrong, she immediately went, changed the coupon, took it down, but there was some damage to the company because of a mistake she made. Nobody came in her house. She never talked to a customer. She never met with anyone. So you just need to talk to a small business insurance company. And not all insurance companies do small business coverage. Not all insurance companies will cover a home-based business. But regardless, if you are starting a business in your home and making something, if people are coming to your house, even if you're flying under the radar with the city and not properly zoned for that, the main thing you better do is tell your home insurance. Because when you bought your house 7 years ago, I bet you didn't check on the box that you were operating a business there. Therefore, your insurance policy doesn't cover that. So if someone does come to your house and fall down your stairs or trip in your driveway or something happens to them, your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover that if it was for a business purpose and you never told them you were operating a business in your house. So at minimum, make sure that you have that taken care of. But also realize the company that has your home insurance may not be the best place to get small business insurance. And so at Startup Junkie, we have a list of local insurance companies. Oh goodness, I think we have like 11 on there, one in every town, that's a company that specifically does small business insurance. And so one of the best ways to get that is to ask someone who knows a business like what you're going to do. Hey, where do you get your insurance? There are different kind of what I call kind of boutique insurance. When we send people to the Arkansas Food Innovation Lab at the University of Arkansas, which helps people make salsa or juices or any type of product that can be sold like in stores and grocery stores and things, you can go there, and I'm going to talk about them as one of our resources, and get a certificate from the state of Arkansas that says you have the right and you are doing it properly to manufacture food products. So then you can take them to sell at Harps, or you can take your local product to a local coffee shop and sell it there. They also have access to a very special food manufacturer's insurance company that's very inexpensive. So like if people got sick one time from your food that you were producing out of their kitchen that you were selling in the stores, it will cover that. So there are all different types of policies. Workers' compensation, if you have employees, I tell people, even if you have below the minimum in Arkansas, which requires that, it's always great insurance to have just in case someone gets hurt, because you want to take care of your employees and you want them to get well and come back to work. Business interruption insurance. That has become a hot topic with the COVID-19 crisis. I've already seen, just, because I am still a licensed attorney and I get mail and I get emails and things, there are some already major class action lawsuits out there over people who had business interruption experience, and now it's not covering the COVID crisis because there was an exception for pandemics or epidemics. There are some states on the East Coast that the legislature has overridden the insurance laws and said if it's a claim for $200,000 or less and it's COVID related, insurance companies in New Jersey, you have to cover the claim even though the interruption insurance said it doesn't. So that's kind of become a really unique topic lately. But in general, you need to think about if you have a freezer full of food for your food truck or for your restaurant, and we get one of those, we haven't had them in a while, but we get one of those major ice storms that knocks the electricity out for 3 days and all that food rots, you need to be sure that you have coverage for that, but also coverage for the fact that you can't sell food for several days because all your food is rotten and you can't open your parking lot because the ice storm's so bad or the electricity's out. So checking on that business interruption experience. Every time I've had a client that I required that of when I was a business banker, I've been very surprised how inexpensive that insurance was. Key person insurance or life insurance. If you're not the chef of your restaurant or you're not the one who actually makes the dresses that you're selling in your store, you have someone else who's an employee that is your seamstress that does that, and that's your major revenue stream, you might need to think about having a life insurance policy on that person. There are restaurants in New York City that their chef is the draw of the restaurant, and the restaurant might take out $1 million life insurance policy on her, because if she passes away, it's going to take them quite a bit of time to get a new celebrity chef and bring them into the restaurant to build back up that reputation. Major corporations have multi-million-dollar life insurance policies on their CEOs, because if a CEO for a major corporation passes away, their stock will go down and they need to recoup some of those losses and rebuild that business if the public loses confidence in their CEO. Personnel. Hiring employees brings in a whole nother set of law books, a whole nother set of rules and regulations, and a whole nother set of issues. A lot of my very small business owners perhaps do contracts with independent contractors, but I will tell you, whatever your agreement is with that independent contractor, you need to run it by your small business attorney. Give them a call, the person who helped you set that LLC up a year ago. Make sure that they're really an independent contractor. As my grandpa used to say, It's a funny thing about a piece of paper. It'll just lay there and let you write whatever you want on it, but it doesn't make it true. All right. So you and your friend can write on a piece of paper, you're going to make these parts of this outfit for me. You're going to sew the sleeves, or you're going to sew the veils for these dresses. And you're an independent contractor, you're not an employee. Just because you write that on a piece of paper doesn't mean they're an independent contractor. There is a whole set of rules and regulations. You can't provide the equipment to the person. You can't train the person. You can't tell your friend, oh, and by the way, you can't ever go on vacation in May because June's a busy bridal season for us. If you control that person in any way, they're not an independent contractor. And if they get mad at you and turn you in, or you fire them and quit using them and they turn you into the IRS, you're going to owe all those back employee taxes, all those back payroll taxes that you should have paid for them, because they really weren't an independent contractor. They were an employee, and you and they were just trying to avoid the mess of taxes. And that is not a good thing, to get sideways with the IRS and have to pay back taxes and back penalties because you thought they were an independent contractor, but they really weren't. That's not an excuse. So make sure you really are very clear. One of the things I advise a lot of my small business owners when they're ready to start hiring employees is to try it on. Go use a local temp agency. We have several excellent temporary employment agencies in Northwest Arkansas, and I've never sent a client to one that they didn't have a pool of applicants. They'll take care of the hiring and asking the right questions and not the wrong questions. They'll take care of the payroll for that person. They'll send them out, and you can call them and say, you know, I just had a personality conflict with that person. I don't think it's going to work out. Can you try to help me find another good candidate? And they'll say, sure, we'll send a different person tomorrow. You don't have to deal with that process of terminating that relationship. Now, if you're paying the person $10 an hour, the employment agency, you're probably going to be paying them $13 or $14 an hour. You will pay for that. But sometimes it's worth it to have someone checking the payroll and doing non-discriminatory applications and non-discriminatory interviews. Learn to be a boss. Learn to be an employer, possibly through a temp agency. That might be a good alternative. If you decide to be a boss and you're going to have employees and you're going to be an employer, you're going to need to go back again to that small business attorney and have an employee handbook drafted up. I don't care if it's 1 employee or 10, you need an employee handbook drafted to give each employee that you have. I talked earlier about the home-based business law issues. Be very, very careful with that. You're checking zoning covenants in the covenants that you agreed to when you bought your house. You can't say later, oh, well, I didn't bother to read the covenants and realize I can't have a home-based business. Too bad. You bought the house. You didn't have to buy that house. Make sure that your type of business is allowed in your county. If you're outside the county, years ago in Northwest Arkansas, you could do whatever you wanted out in the county. We now have county zoning. So even when you're outside the city limits, there are restrictions. There are some tax advantage for business use of a home office. You can talk to your accountant or your CPA about that. Make sure you are for sure checking with your home owner's insurance on your house. And if you're a renter, make sure and check about your renter's policy too, if that's allowed or if you're covered for that. Mail delivery. This becomes an issue. You can set up, and we talk about this in the marketing portion when we do marketing series here. You want people to be able to Google your business name or find you in Google, even if you don't have a public store. You need to have a Google business listing, and Google can set that up. You're going to put your home-based business address in the Google business listing, but then you can tell Google to hide it and have the map just show you're in Northwest Arkansas somewhere. And you want to do that because that's going to help with the search engine optimization when people are looking for your services or your goods that you sell out of your home. But this also becomes the mail issue. When you send out packages, do you want the return address to be your home address, or do you want to have some sort of paid address or a paid post office? Always remember, the post office is very different than FedEx or DHL, and sometimes they don't deliver to each other and they don't play nicely together. You might need a spot to have the FedEx trucks and the DHL trucks go to if it's not allowed in your neighborhood. Telephone, if you start your business with your personal cell phone and the business grows and explodes, are you going to be happy giving up that personal cell phone number because now you need a public business number? A lot of times it is not very expensive to add a second line to your personal. And I always advise, if your business is only locally based, if it's not national or international, to have a recognizable local area code, because people are more comfortable calling a company with the same area code as them if you're purely going to be local. Those are things to think about. It's kind of weird, you know, when I look up the business number for a business in Fayetteville and they have a, you know, 812 area code. I always say to myself, why do they have an 812 area code? Well, it's probably a U of A student from Pennsylvania that started this business and stayed. But you don't want people pausing and going, why do they have an 812 area code when their business is on Block Street in Fayetteville? Marketing is very, very important for small businesses. And you can say, oh, I don't want to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a website and marketing. I'm just going to start my business. My business is going to launch because of word of mouth. I can tell you, when I was a small business banker, if you wanted me to loan you hundreds of thousands of dollars to start a small business, I asked to see your marketing plan. I want to know who's going to build your website, how you're going to maintain the website. I want to see that you're spending at least probably $10,000 in initial marketing, joining chambers of commerce, taking out ads, advertising if appropriate on TV or in the radio, paying for social media ads. Northwest Arkansas is a very, very competitive small business market. And you might have the best bicycle mechanic that ever existed. You might be the best videographer in the world, but if nobody ever finds out about you or hears about you or sees your videos or reads reviews about how incredible your bicycle mechanic is, they're never going to find you. Starting a small business on a shoestring is a fantasy. You can start it, but it may end very quickly. You have to have a legitimate marketing budget to launch your business and get the word out there. Social media, once again, people say to me, I don't need social media. I get all my business from word of mouth. Word of mouth used to be, words in my mouth tell you to your ears, go eat at so-and-so restaurant. This here, our phones, is the interrupter. Our phones have changed word of mouth forever, because the first thing I'm going to do when you tell me to go eat somewhere is I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look them up. What does it look like? Where is it? What do the reviews show or the recommendations today? The internet, social media is the interrupter of word of mouth. So that's not enough. And if you aren't here, if you aren't on people's phones, honestly, you don't exist. And they will wonder if you're really there. And I'm not going to drive all the way from my office on the square to Uptown to try a new place to eat until I check it out, because that's a lot of my time going through that traffic. Networking is absolutely vital. Getting out and spreading the word about what you do. I have been involved very much on a weekly basis with chambers of commerce, networking groups like BNI, like Creative Referral Network in Fayetteville, Central Referral Connection in Rogers through the Rogers Lowell Chamber. I go out to these places. I meet with these people. Some of the larger chambers, like the Rogers Lowell Area Chamber, which is the largest one in Northwest Arkansas, the second largest in the state of Arkansas. I promise you, if you go to the Rogers Lowell Chamber's website, there is a networking event in our normal times at least 3 times a week. There's a place for you to go meet people and wear a name badge and pass out your cards and tell people what you do. And I don't tell you this because I just need something to fill this spot and talk about marketing. I have seen people go from a startup with very little revenue within 2 years to being major small business players in Northwest Arkansas because of the connections they have made, the people they have met and helped, who then turned around and helped them and gave them referrals through networking events at chambers and networking groups, industry groups. If there's a restaurant association, if there's a Facebook group in Northwest Arkansas, event and wedding business owners. They have a Facebook group and they post and they meet once a week, and there's over 800 people in that. I see them every day on my phone, referring business to each other, suggesting places for people to try, suggesting people to do work for them. Absolutely get involved. You need to love your small business so much that those times that you're working on a Saturday night at 11 p.m. or a Sunday morning at 6:30 before you go to church, that you're so excited and in love with your industry that you're willing to do that. And being out and networking is a way for you to express that enthusiasm and joy and tell people about your business. So you must have a pretty major budget for whatever is the appropriate type of marketing for you. And we have a list at Startup Junkie of local marketing companies who do free webinars and seminars for us. Watch our events, sign up for them. These are very, very highly trained marketing professionals who volunteer and do these for us for free because they want to network. They want to get their name out as a small business marketing company, and you can learn from them how to do this. These are some of the areas, and like I said, Caleb is going to email out to all of you a PDF copy of these slides, and also Christy and Audwin and Steve Cox's contact information. And so the first one, several of us have talked about already. Those are the Arkansas Small Business and Technology Development Centers. There are 7 in the state of Arkansas. They're based out of Little Rock at UALR. And we have one, when I worked for them, we were a part of the Walton College. Now they are part of the new University of Arkansas Economic Development Division. And their office is at the corner of Block Street and Dixon Street in Fayetteville, and they are still taking appointments online. They have really ramped up and hired extra staff due to the COVID crisis because they're funded specifically, half of all their income and their funding comes from the SBA. So they've been trained by the SBA to help people with SBA related issues, but they also will prepare those cash flow statements I talked to you about, those projections, and get you that market research. All of our area chambers of commerce, I know people on staff at every single one. It is one of the best investments a small business can make when they are first launching, because it tells the world very quickly in their town about their business. And it also gives you opportunities for very inexpensive marketing and networking through those chambers. SCORE is another group of persons. They are volunteers, unlike the ASBTDC. Those are university employees. SCORE is a series of volunteers. And a great thing about SCORE is they provide consulting to nonprofits, which like the ASBTDC does not. Startup Junkie does provide. We'll always meet with almost anyone who's needing to start a business and to help them with that process. But most of us are primarily targeted to for-profit. The Brewer Family Entrepreneurship Hub is another neighbor of ours here on the square, just about 2 blocks away. If you are a U of A student or a graduate of the University of Arkansas, they offer some incredible services with experts in entrepreneurship and with events that they have, and sometimes their events for entrepreneurship are free. If your business could ever sell a product, or you could do a service for a city, a county, a state, or the federal government, please contact me or copy this information that I'm going to send to you at this website. Reach out to me and contact Max Franks. Max Franks works for the Arkansas Procurement Technical Assistance Center out of Little Rock, and he has an office in Dentonville. He teaches free seminars for us on how to get a contract with the city of Fayetteville to sell landscaping materials, or to do construction, or to wash windows, or for the state of Arkansas to sell hay to the state parks for the horses that the park rangers use. He will help you with all of these government contracting services. If you have tech services, you could go in and help redo a computer system for a city for free. He will teach you how to bid on those contracts. He's paid by the state of Arkansas to do that. The Arkansas Food Innovation Center, a lot of people around here call it the Food Lab at the U of A, but that's its official name. It's located out on Garland across the street from the Washington County Fairgrounds. And there's a wonderful director out there who will walk you through the process of getting a true Arkansas legit manufacturer food permit. If you have an offer to sell your popcorn or your chocolate or your peanut butter or your salsa in a local Harp store, they're going to need a nutrition food label. They're going to need to see that you're using a certified kitchen and you have proper practices. They're going to see that you have food manufacturing product liability insurance. The Arkansas Food Innovation Center will do this for you for a very, very low cost. It ends up taking about 3 to 4 months to get all of that done, to get place in their kitchen, to gear up, to manufacture your 300 salsa bottles a year and get all of those licenses and permits. And the entire process, John said, usually costs about $1,000 to $1,200 over that period. And then you can continue to use that facility. So this is a lot. Usually in my first meetings with clients, don't give them this much information because then they start going, I can't do this. And I'm like, no, you can't. You can't do all this in a day. You're exactly right. Let's set 3 goals. I want you to go do this, this, and this. And I'll get my calendar out and I'll say, how about we set a call and let's talk in 2 weeks. How long do you think it will take you to do these 3? Okay, I'm going to do those 3 and then I'll call you in 2 weeks. And then we keep the other 4 or 5. And then we meet back and we keep going through the process. It's never one and done with us. So what I like to do in this is let you see exactly what the title of it was. It's a roadmap. And what do you do with a road? You don't go from point A to point Z in a day. It's a journey. And these are some of the steps. And I think you need to know that in a few miles, there's going to be some hills. And I think you need to know in a few miles, there's going to be some valleys. And there's going to be some dirt roads. But there's help. There's rest stops. There's assistance. There are highway departments. There are people to help you on this path. And we have a lot of them in Northwest Arkansas. And that's one of the main things that I think we provide our community at Startup Junkie. We don't say, come to Startup Junkie. We're all you need. You'll be good. No. No one here is ever going to say that. We are going to get you where you need and get you the assistance and the help that you need to do what you need to do. And if in a month you change your mind and say, you know, I don't want to open a brick and mortar business. I think I want to do like pop-up shows and I want to sell from home and do online. Let's change the business model. Let's try that. We'll say, okay, let's start over. Let's try a new path and figure out what that looks like. So this is my contact info and Caleb's going to send you these slides so that you'll have them. And now I'm going to check with Caleb and see if we have any specific questions that anybody's asked that he thinks I might be able to answer. And Caleb, do we have any that you've seen?
We don't have any questions right now.
Okay. So we don't have any questions that anybody needs me to answer now. But if any of you think of any, you can email me. You can call me. My business cell phone will be listed there. I can connect you with Christy or Odwin or someone at Bank OZK.